Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on an interesting reel. It's a JC Higgins 47F model, and this one was a reel that Bobby sent in to me. I get a lot of reels that Bobby sends in to me that don't work. That's okay. This one has a fully tightened down drag, and yet the reel isn't spinning very well. If you hold your hand on it, the drag isn't working. And in release free spool mode, it rides nicely. So I don't think there's anything broken on that side, and it may very well be that it's just drag washers that are needed. Well, what is the JC Higgins Model 47F? Who was JC Higgins? Who made the reel? And so on is always a question that I get. And JC Higgins was a buyer of sporting goods equipment for Sears. He was the senior buyer, and he bought or contracted for the fishing reels. And the fishing reels bared his name as the kind of the model name for the fishing reels sold by Sears. Sears did not make the reels. Sears contracted with others. In this case, it was contracted by Ocean City. And when you look at a lot of these reels, there's telltale signs of the particular reel. There's some cosmetic changes. For example, the handle is different than the Ocean City reel. The badging is different, of course. But then you come underneath here, and it's got the 3-screw reel seat that is common to Ocean City. A lot of times you'll look and you'll see that the click knob, which still works, and the bearing are the same, and it's only superficial changes that they made. Those would be called trade reels, and Ocean City was very active in the trade reel market. They made them for a host of retailers and sporting goods stores. I've seen these as Macy's, of all things. I've seen them as DeVega, as Montgomery Ward's, and so on. Well, this one was sold by Sears. Well, let's open this up and let's get underneath this thing and let's see what's going on here with this particular reel and why it's a little challenge here. Well, the first thing I want to do is find myself a little Ocean City wrench. Now, a lot of times the Ocean City wrenches came with screws, and they would attach right to the handle so you wouldn't lose them. I guess that's another telltale sign that this is an Ocean City reel. The handle wrench fits. Well, if you don't have the handle wrench, I think this was a 9/16 American threaded one, but I can't say for sure. I guess I could reach into my bin and find that sized wrench, put it on there and see. What I'm doing here is I'm backing up the star adjuster to take the slack out of the handle, because when you have a thin handle wrench like this, it has a tendency to slide underneath once you get a little gap there. So if you just keep walking that star adjuster up, tighten the gap up, it will be enough there. Okay, this is a square shafted one, which is also kind of indicative of Ocean City. And when I take all that stuff off, I'm going to just put my stuff in a parts tray just to keep it safe, so that I can go and take the time to restore that and find them when it's reassembly time. Well, a couple of other things here. There's a slot in this gear sleeve that's also a telltale of a Ocean City gear sleeve. And underneath here we have a collar, which you can see when they were tightening down the star adjuster, it wasn't engaging that collar because, well, I'm guessing here that the drags are just so bad that they got compressed and they're done. Let's go ahead and remove this. While we do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That'll tell you when I'm posting videos, and I work on all kinds of reels. Today we're just kind of working on a curiosity here, why it failed, and how to service this one if you have a model like this. And tomorrow we might be working on a spinning reel, we might be working on a classic, or one that's just been released. Well, probably not the ones that have just been released. I get that question all the time, why aren't you working on the one that just came out? Well, what I'll tell my customers when they bring a reel in like that has failed is go send it back. It's under warranty. Most of the reels you get have a 1-year warranty to them, and why pay for it if the manufacturer is warrantying it? Surprisingly, the answer I get back is, well, the manufacturers are slow to respond, and I need the reel to go fishing. I don't need the reel to be sitting on a manufacturer's to-do pile for 6 months. Well, that's your choice. But I do recommend most of the time that the folks bring those reels back. Okay, let's remove the side plate now that all of the screws are out. Well, that's not the cause of the drags not working, but boy, that is an indication that somebody got a little bit aggressive with the grease, and by the color of it, it has either been a long time since it's been changed, or it's axle grease or something that's not a fishing reel grease. Even on this side, I always like when folks grease the case. It's not a moving part. It's kind of a waste of grease, but I'm never surprised when I open up a reel. All right, what do I do to get rid of that grease? I've gotten that question more times than you can imagine. I like to take a penetrating oil. In this case, I'm using WD-40. I like to just soak it. It's going to loosen it up. I'll just let that sit for a moment. We'll come back over here, take a paper towel, and see what we can wipe down and wipe off of that. Well, why do I want to do that? Why don't I just leave it in the case? It's not contacting any moving parts. Why not? Well, the problem with the greases are that they trap the sands and microsalts and things like that in a saltwater environment. Greases evaporate, they become the dirt, and they can clog the reel, and they can gum up parts in addition to just kind of laying idly on the side there. So the penetrating oil cut right through that. Did a nice job of cleanup, and we'll just put that grease off to the side. Well, let's see how effective we were with that here. Yeah, it's cutting it down. You may have to rinse and repeat this a couple of times. And I wear a protective glove. Many of you noticed that on the videos, primarily for this reason. I don't like to get the grease and junk all over me. Now I got a working hand here that doesn't do well with cleanups and that. I have a hard time with the gloves with holding small pieces and parts. I always think back to the commercials when I was a kid that they used to advertise. I think it was Playtex gloves. So thin you can pick up a dime kind of a thing. Well, just kind of not working that way for me. Now this one's interesting because this is metal. So that tells you a little bit about the history of the reel. You can, it's the old, if reels could talk, but that's metal line. So what that says is they were using wire line on this reel. They were using it primarily probably for big fish, like trolling for shark or something like that. And that's probably why this reel wound up on the shelf somewhere. But it can also be an indication of why the drags are worn so badly. If you're fighting a fish like that, well, this reel probably was undersized for what they were using it for. And, well, probably cooked the drags, just kind of smoked them. All right, well, that cleaned up nicely. That's an indication that the metals that we used in this were actually very nice metals. Well, I get a question all the time about how do I clean the corrosion and the like off the spools. There's a couple of different products I use. I like the Flitz Metal Pre-Clean. That's a spray bottle that'll help dissolve a lot of the calciums and the like. In this case, I'm just going to grab a 4-0 steel wool. It's a very fine steel wool and a little bit of metal polish. It's actually an automotive chrome polish and cleaner. I don't know where I fell into using that, but it works. Probably because I thought, okay, this spool is chrome plated, and I was at the auto store buying something and found it, and it worked. So, needless to say, you don't have chrome bumpers on cars that you're polishing anymore, but the polish continues to be out there. And if you're interested, I think this one says Turtle Wax Chrome Polish on it. I find that it works pretty well. Flitz makes a nice product as well. They make a nice product that cleans, and there's a polish that goes along with it. The metal pre-cleaner followed by the polish. Cons was kind of nice enough to send me some. And he sent me a whole can of it. And I've been using it occasionally, although I haven't featured it on my videos. All right, well, that's so much for cleanup in aisle 7 here. We don't need to spend the whole video doing this. So let's just put that over on the side. Let's go attack this. This is just as ugly as the other part was. And this is where I really don't like this aspect of the working on it. And we have to get through this because we have to get to the bridge and we have to get inside of it. And what's between us and that bridge happens to be all this gunk and grease and the like. And this is pretty thick. And again, to get to a stage where this has gotten, with all the dried greases, and that says the reel hasn't been serviced in a very long time, and it certainly hasn't gone fishing in a long time either. And we can figure out why it didn't go fishing. It doesn't have a drag system in it. So unless you want to fight this one manually by hand, even that's impossible, because the problem that you would have with that is the drags are not holding down to the spool, and as you saw when we started, you couldn't turn that. Well, this is an Ocean City design, there's no question about that. The Ocean City design has a collar for a pinion gear. They're two separate pieces. Those slots in that intersect with the two studs on the inside of the spool here, and that's how the spool drives. To remove this, I like to take the reel and put it into the up position. We even have a little difficulty moving that up here without it being on the reel. What we're going to do is we're going to remove this tie down screw. Let's just put it back where it was. Take the tie down screw. The screwdriver's too thick. Try this one. Back it off. You don't have to take it out completely. This is a swing arm like a gate lock. So just swing that out of the way. And once you do that, you should be able to grab this jack and pull up and out. Okay, well, this one's a little stuck, so rather than trying to pull it up and out this way, normally you could probably grab it, pop it up over that rivet, and slide it up. We're just going to remove the two studs that are holding it in here, and we'll deal with it that way. There's more than one way to get at these. If you just back these screws up a little bit, it's probably going to loosen it up enough that you can do that now. Yeah, there you go. Just like that, loosen it up. Then you can see the carrier. As I mentioned, it's a two-piece to the yoke and the pinion gear. Here's your pinion gear, and I think one of the issues here is probably how that spring is mounted. Let's take these two springs out. This is what happens when you get into a lot of grease. It starts to corrupt the integrity of the reel. All right, I'm going to leave these parts here. We're going to clean all of these. Let's come back. I'm going to leave those studs on here. Let's come back and take the bridge off next. Those are the two bottom screws. I've left the two in the collar for the top piece. So now we'll do the bottom. This is going to tell us whether we have the worn drags or not. And the interesting thing here is, even though this reel was discontinued in the 1950s and doesn't have parts support to it, usually you can find the pen drag system that does have the support to it. And you can get the replacement drag washers for pen that also fit this, even though they're different companies. With those two screws out, just push the bridge through. That's our bridge. Here's your anti-reverse spring and a little rocket on it. Don't lose that. You won't find a replacement. And let's just check this now. We have a free-flowing spring return there. Let's do the same thing here that we've been doing all along. I know it gets redundant. Let's melt down that grease with some penetrating oil. This time around, I'm going to use a cotton swab to see if we can't move out a lot of that junky kind of stuff. Clean up as much as we can with that. Now you see why the gloves. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, just leave them in the comments section. I'll try and answer those questions for you. And I've worked extensively on reels now for, over 25 years. It wasn't my primary avocation, but it certainly was one that I took to and have been doing for a long time. And chances are, if you have a question, I'll be able to answer that for you. And if I can't, I'll try and point you to where you can get that information. As I mentioned earlier, I've worked on all kinds of reels, and there's all kinds of reels out there to be worked on. I don't necessarily know every reel, and if I don't know those reels, I'll try and do some basic research. If I can't figure that research out, well, then I'm going to see if I can find somebody who does know that information. It looks like, as I mentioned, we have a pressed down drag stack here. Let's see if we can't remove this from the shaft. We can. These look like it's going to be the drag washers for the Model 60, but I'm not quite sure there. Let's remove that anti-reverse dog. And there should be a pin holding the shaft in, and we're going to want to remove this shaft as well. If you look for it, very much like a pen reel, you'll find that it's going to be up top, about 1/4 of an inch down from the top. Now let's see if we can't push that pin through. No, we can. At least we can get it started by pushing through. You may need to walk it out with the pliers. If you do, just be careful when you grip the tip. You don't want to scar it up terribly, but you do want to get it out. You can remove that gear shaft then, and then I generally like to start the pin right back in there so that I don't lose it and put it into the tray. Well, you can see why it's been performing rough. It's got all this dried grease inside as well as outside. Right now Chris is saying I gotta change out the paper towel, and he's absolutely correct. It's amazing. They probably used a year's worth of allotment of grease on this one reel, but that was their choice. Hey, it's still here. It's a survivor. That's a good indication of the reel quality. And then let's take a look at what's going on with this drag system here. I'm not sure. Sometimes these drag systems were nothing but metal. Nope. In this case, what we have is a pretty much a torn up drag washer, which is what we expected to see. All right, this is a cork washer that's been worn down terribly. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to try an old-timer's trick here to see if we can't restore that. You're not going to change that. There certainly could be a case where we have a replacement. I don't have a keyed washer that goes like this. But we can do two things here to elevate the reach of that. First one, we're going to reuse this. There's nothing wrong with, oh, there is. This is broken. That's probably what happened. All right, so what we're going to do then, we're going to double this up, and we're going to use the pen washers to do that. And then we'll see if we can't put a washer on top to give you more room for adjustment. So if you just hang with me a moment, I'll shut this off, go get those washers, and we'll continue. Okay, I went out and I got the drag washers for the Pen 60. That's the Long Beach model. I also found a Pen keyed washer. Now that hole is larger than the hole on the gear shaft that I also just reinstalled back there. You'll see that there's play on that. It's not going to exactly trip it, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to use that as a spacer to build up the drag stack. And again, we want to get to the point where this collar can be effective with the star adjuster. So what we did was we put the bridge back on. It just reasserted the pin. I'm going to clean this main gear now. It looks pretty clean, but you saw all that muck and grease in there. So you want to use a metal brush or something. Pull it through the gear's teeth so that you can make sure it's nice and clean. I use a paper towel underneath that, so as I'm pulling it, the old grease and dirt is hitting that rather than just kind of going around in a circle there. When I do that, the next thing I would like to do is put a fresh coat of grease onto the main gear. And this isn't quite a bush fix, but I guess it is a bush fix using the pen washers. But you won't find the washers for the Ocean City wheels any longer. Unfortunately, well, they fit. So the fellow that founded Penn, Otto Heinz, he worked at Ocean City beforehand, and I often wonder sometimes if he didn't take some of those dimensions with him, then maybe that's why these washers fit. All right, we're going to build that up now. So we'll take one of the pen washers. These can be greased, or they can be put in dry. Let me show you an example of greasing it. This is the modern pen HT100. You can take grease. In this case, I'm taking Cal's Universal Grease, rubbing it on with my gloved hand, and then wiping off the excess on a paper towel. You still want to see the cross hatching on there. Greasing will keep that a little bit more flexible. All right, it's oversized, but it will fit, and it won't shimmy and shake because the exterior or outer diameter of that fits in the case. So we'll be okay there, we should be. Let's go ahead and take the second one, put that on. And now when we put the drag washer in for the wheel itself, it'll be higher and sit proud as opposed to being stuck inside the case there with the broken drag washer. That one will hold the gear sleeve in properly. Now we've got enough room here, I can see already, we've got enough room here that when we put the sleeve on and install that in the case, you will be effectively compressing those drag washers and holding firm. Okay, let's do that. So this kind of comes in and goes out the same way, right? So the last part we took off was this piece. I think when I go to install this now, I'm going to have to remove that one piece, one side of the tie down, because you have to swing this one around. So let's go ahead and do that right now. This is the collar that's going to catch it. I'm going to take both out. You don't need to take both out, but we'll show you how to do that from a set as well as we work on this one. And again, like everything else on these old wheels, don't lose the screws and the like. That's the advantage of a parts tray. And we're going to take those right now, put those in there for safekeeping. All right, now we want to take our main gear. We want to find the bridge screw for the bottom, this one. We're going to set this in on an angle. We're going to put the bridge screw in. Going to put the anti-reverse dog in. That little bump goes up. Going to go get what I call that rocket spring and screw. That goes next. You're going to compress that down, and you got to be careful here because this will shoot. You're going to compress that down so it meets the side of that anti-reverse dog, just like that, and then you're going to swing the whole bridge assembly over so that you can align the screw with the hole in the bridge and tighten it up this way. Don't over tighten it, you got to come back and put the other screw in. I'll do that right now. And then you can tighten both down. And I'm very happy with what I'm seeing at the moment. And what I'm seeing is that there's room here now. You can see how the collar for the sleeve that's going to be compressed by that star adjuster is proud of the carrier. That says when we go put all of that back together again, we should have a nice operating drag. Well, the yoke on this one is just as miserable as the rest of it was in terms of having a lot of old and dried grease on it. So let's clean that up. Just using the paper towel. When I do the cleaning, I like to work with the least abrasive of the pieces first, and then if I need to, well, something like this where I not need to go in and get a pick to clean out the dried grease and the lake. But if you can, go with the cotton swabs, go with the paper towels, avoid heavier, more aggressive cleaning implements unless needed. And then what you want to do here, because this is going to intersect with the studs on the spool, make sure that those cavities are clean as well. All right, that's in good condition there. The next up then, we're going to put the carrier in. Sometimes if you're working on an Ocean City reel, you'll notice there's a little bump in the back here that would face in if that's the case. This one doesn't have that feature, so either side of the yoke will work fine. Let's get a little bit of grease onto the side here where that carrier is going to ride. And let's go ahead and put the pinion gear in. Check the pinion gear. You want to make sure all the teeth are good. They are. I was kind of looking at that myself without bringing that to your attention. And we'll just set that aside for a moment. Why are we setting it aside? Well, because we've got to put those carriers back in. And we have to use the springs. The springs have to get in there as well. Same idea here. Clean up the carriers. We've got the old greases in there as well. But I have no doubt at all that this is going to go fishing again, and it's going to have a wonderful time out there catching fish. And if I can't find somebody that wants to give this reel a second chance, I'll take it out myself. It's that strong a reel. Okay, let's go ahead and put these two in. When you put these two in, the flat side of the groove needs to face inward. So on a northeast-southwest scale of things, this is going west when you're looking at it. Okay, before we leave this, let's take the opportunity with that open bushing back there, put a little bit of grease into that. And we can take our springs. You know where to find them. They're in the case. The springs go over the carriers. This is where you put your yoke in next. Of course, we've greased the yoke already. Center them over the springs, push down. Sometimes you'll trap that spring, so you gotta just play around with it a little bit. Eventually you will get it where you clear your channels. You've got it all pressed down, you've merged in the gear. That's where you take your jack and you insert it so that it carries flush. All right, holding everything together. These are still loose, remember. You're going to need that for clearance here. Take your jack and just roll that in. Center it over that little stud. And then swing that gate key around to lock that in place. Once you lock it in place, tighten that down before you continue. You don't want to lose the set. Now we got to come back in and tighten down the side keys again. And I think with this reel, you pretty much have to leave these loose. Sometimes it'll work better, sometimes it'll work worse. In this case, it needs to be loose. All right, let's flip this forward. You can see how this now pulls in the yoke to disengage. Once you have that reattached, just give it a test. So we're in engage mode. You can see that the yoke and carrier are out. And if we pull back to release, now you can see it's all pulled back. That will disengage from the spool. Good. All right, that's the internal servo. Okay, let's go reinstall the side plate then. Let's go bring that over and line your holes with your crossbar. The long screws, there's 4 of those. They go into the outside. The crossbars, the 3 shorter ones go to the reel seat. When I do this, I like to put the 2 into the top crossbars opposing, and then do the 1 in the cross seat below, the reel seat. one of the shorter ones, right in the middle. And then that's going to keep torsion equal across this reel. So now you can fill in the blanks here with your screws, making kind of alternating how you do that, but it'll keep that even as you go. Another long one for this side, and then we can fill in the two on the cross or on the reel seat. Put the handle on with the star adjuster, and we'll see how we do. Two more short ones go below. Now when I did this, I purposely did not put that little collar washer inside the reel, if it belonged there. And that's because I built it up with the bigger washer from the pen and wanted to make sure I had side plate clearance. So I'll put that on the outside here, give it a little extra reach. We can do that right now. Sometimes you'll find these on the outside, sometimes they'll be on the inside. Just know where they come from. All right, now a little bit of polish here. Polished everything else, we might as well take care of the star adjuster. And a new paper towel for that. Sometimes I think I keep the paper towel folks in business. Usually you can tell there's one side that's shinier than the other. And these are always fun, trying to get these back on. They don't necessarily line up and go square all the time. If you find yourself in a situation where it's spinning like this, that slot that was provided here generally can help you hold that down while you turn. And once you get the clearance, use your handle as the wrench. And then continue to tighten. There we go. Finally get through that. That's because those threads often get clogged with all the salt and debris and the like. All right, I wish I had a better handle. That knob is a little loose, but for now, for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to tighten down the handle with what we got. I'm going to tighten the handle screw with what I have by hand strength first, and then we'll come in with that wrench. Finish that off. And one of those little annoyances in life is that while you have that gap there, the wrench sometimes slides underneath. Just be patient. Tighten that down good. Well, we should have a functioning JC Higgins Model 47F with a new drag washer system, courtesy of using the pen parts and a little bush fix there. Let's see how we did. Let's flip this to the off position and spin that. Oh my gosh, look at this. How pretty is that? That thing will spin all day. Credit to good engineering. Beautiful. All right, let's engage it. More importantly, is it going to work with those washers? Listen to the click. We got that. You got that reverse. And we're holding firm. So what we've learned in the past applies to the present. The pen washers will fit this reel. That's the pen Model 60. This is the Model 47 JC Higgins reel. And everything is working beautifully on this reel. Let's put the clicker on. Nice loud clicker. This one's ready to have a second chance to go fishing again. I hope you've enjoyed that. Now it's taken a little bit longer. We've talked about a lot of different things. One of the things we haven't done is thank our first responders and essential personnel for everything they do to keep us safe. So let's do that right now. And if you're still with me, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I wish everybody good luck fishing. Have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.